Hi, it's Christy and welcome back to Spacious Success. In today's episode, we're going to unpack what I call the stress superstorm. This is the collision of biology, beliefs and bias that are leaving ambitious women like you feeling depleted. By the end of today's episode, you'll understand why stress feels harder for women, you're not imagining it, what's happening biologically, and practical ways for you to calm the storm. I want to share a day in my life recently. It started at 2:27 a.m. Sharp, awake. Heart racing, mind spinning, not uncommon these days. Night sweats, hormonal shifts, and a mental to-do list that never shuts down. At 3 a.m, I think I remembered that it was book week the following week and I hadn't organised a costume for my son. By 3:10, it was a birthday gift that I hadn't bought for a son's birthday party. At 3:30, I was stressing about not sleeping before my keynote later that day. By the time I boarded my plane from Sydney to Melbourne to deliver the keynote, I'd already dealt with 45 WhatsApp messages from school and sporting WhatsApp groups, 2 identical billing reminders on SMS and email that my account would be debited, 5 emails needing digital signatures for permission notes for school, and I still had to deliver a keynote, analysing a coaching client's wearable data, and respond to 2 inboxes that were never stopping. The sad thing is that wasn't unusual. That was a regular Tuesday for me. I recently saw this meme the other day on Instagram, and it summed up how many high-performing women that I work with are currently feeling. It was a woman jogging, and of course she was wearing a weighted vest, and the caption read this: "Mums in their 40s be like, I don't know why I'm so tired." Meanwhile, they're training for a marathon, working full-time, chauffeuring kids to 27 different activities a week, trying to drink enough water, hit their protein and fibre goals, and of course wearing their weighted vests. For many of us, this is what the stress superstorm looks like in real life. Hormones, caregiving, careers colliding with a constant digital drip. Here's the thing. Stress, it's not the enemy. In short bursts, stress actually sharpens our focus. It boosts our reaction time. It fuels performance. It's not the enemy. In fact, studies have shown that the way that you view stress, the way you cognitively appraise it, determines its impact on you physically and psychologically. Professor Aaliyah Crumb's research tells us that if we perceive stress as something that is negative, it's harmful, it's toxic, well, it has a corresponding adverse impact on our performance and our well-being. But if, on the other hand, we see stress as our body mounting the right physiological response by narrowing our focus, elevating our heart rate, elevating our performance, then guess what? It actually enhances our performance. Over a short period of time, of course. We know surgeons perform better under pressure. It's something called the clutch effect. Believe it or not, if a surgeon encounters a stressful incident within the first 5 minutes of a procedure, a study found that their patients have far better outcomes. Yes, can you believe it? Stress actually makes your surgeon perform better. Science tells us that stress energy sharpens our performance. So the problem isn't stress itself, but it's the unresolved stress. It's the chronically elevated stress that's detrimental. It's having our nervous system stuck, constantly revving high. Because the reality is our HOS was designed to have short bursts of stress and to resolve the stress cycle. Not one stressful email in between 3 Teams meetings and 87 Teams chat messages all before lunch. Your HOS, it was designed for these short bursts of stress and completed stress cycles. Your biology is wired for a threat, response, reset cycle. Threat, response, reset. But modern life makes us feel stuck mid-cycle. We have micro stresses in our days, pings, buzzers, 27 open internet tabs. We need to talk emails. They're drip-fed into our days and frazzling our nervous system. Worse, our digital behaviours are often making us feel stressed in invasive yet invisible ways. When we stare at our devices, we sigh less. Our HOS, it's designed to sigh while we're awake roughly every 5 minutes. It's a mechanism baked into our biology to regulate our oxygen and carbon dioxide levels. Yet, when our eyes look at our screens, at our phones, at our desktops, at our laptops, we simply don't sigh as regularly. This subtly elevates our stress. Believe it or not, sometimes we even hold our breath when we go into our inboxes. It's called email apnea, and it has been studied. We know that it accelerates our heart rate, our pupils dilate, our blood pressure elevates, and it keeps us locked into this alert mode. We know technology is evolving at rapid rates, but the problem is that we still have ancient Paleolithic brains. We have brains that were biologically designed to go and hunt, forage, and get information, not to have unsolicited pings and notifications constantly being thrust at us. Our HOS has not designed to live in this digitally demanding world we now find ourselves in. So we actually perceive a Teams notification, believe it or not, like a tiger chasing us. And let's be honest, sometimes Teams notifications actually do feel like a tiger chasing us. And let's not forget that our days are now more sedentary. We have far fewer opportunities for human connection, so this is almost the perfect storm for elevating our stress. We have got the recipe for chronic stress overload, the stress superstorm. If you've ever thought, well, why does this feel harder for me than for him, my male partner, my male colleague? It's not you, it's biology colliding with your life stage. This midlife collision is stressful and often brings a perfect storm because major life events coincide simultaneously. Intense parenting demands, aging parents, peak career challenges and demands, hormonal shifts, and let's not forget the digital debt that many of us experience each day now. You see, perimenopause can start in your late 30s and can last up to a decade. Yet many women see the symptoms as mistaken for stress, burnout, or personal failure. But here's why the stress superstorm hits women, particularly middle-aged women, harder. You see, estrogen normally buffers us against stress. As it drops and fluctuates, stress hits harder, and believe it or not, it lingers longer. We also know that estrogen supports serotonin. Declines in serotonin make mood swings and anxiety much more likely. We also know that changes in progesterone change how we calm our nervous system. As it falls, our sleep becomes lighter, fragmented, and harder to sustain. And the irony is that poor sleep often elevates our stress. And so we are stuck in this stress superstorm. Stack that with night sweats, brain fog, and heavier caregiving and domestic loads, and a woman's resilience will erode really quickly. I want you to know this isn't weakness, it's physiology, it's invisible labour, and it's cultural bias often colliding. So how does this stress superstorm form? The stress superstorm forms when three forces simultaneously collide. Your biology, hormonal shifts and biological shifts, and a nervous system that is stuck in high alert. Beliefs. Often females equate busyness with their worth and their performance. Bias. Invisible domestic and caring responsibilities still disproportionately fall on women. Spin each of these Bs long enough, and you're not just stressed, you're paying what I call the success tax. Sacrificing your health, your well-being, and all your relationships in the pursuit of achievement and accomplishment. So how do we calm the storm? Here's the good news. You can't stop every storm, but what you can do is build an umbrella. In my keynotes and with my coaching clients, this is the first pillar in what I call the flourishing formula, and that is you have to build your stress adaptability. In our modern world, stress is inevitable. If you want to flourish, not flounder, you have to learn to dance with stress. And so the first thing is to build your stress tolerance. Today, we are living in a world where everything we need is just a click away. It's an age of instant gratification. Today, we've become so very comfortable with being comfortable. We're hot, we flick on the air conditioner. We're cold, we turn on the heater. We're hungry, we order Uber Eats. We are living in an age where we very rarely experience delayed gratification. Anyone remember when we used to drop our roll of Kodak film off at the chemist's and were told to come back an entire week later to get it, only to be bitterly disappointed that someone had overexposed your roll of film and you got a whole lot of yellow and orange photos? You see, when we avoid physical stress, it means as humans we're ill-equipped to deal with psychological stress. And this is why so many of us, men and women alike, are today crumbling under pressure. We need to build our stress tolerance. So if you want to build your stress adaptability, you need to become adept at doing hard things. When you do hard things, physically and psychologically hard things like learning a new language, taking a cold shower, having an ice bath, having a sauna, your anterior mid-cingulate cortex, which is an area of your brain which essentially controls your will, well, this part of your brain is strengthened. And there's some amazing, really cutting-edge research that shows from brain scans that the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, that willpower center of the brain, it is physically bigger in athletes, smaller in obese populations. What does that mean? It means that our capacity to harness stress is a trainable skill. We can develop our tolerance of stress. And this will help you to thrive under pressure. Meaning that when you intentionally pursue challenge over comfort, you are able to activate that part of your brain to help you with the next stressful situation you encounter. You can train your stress tolerance. That might mean cold showers. And ladies, good news, shorter and warmer for women works best. I'm going to do a separate episode just on this because, interestingly, there are some distinct biological differences for cold exposure between females and males. What else can you do to develop your stress tolerance? Physical exercise, vigorous exercise, saunas, intentional breath work. All of these protocols will teach your body how discomfort isn't necessarily danger. So when real stress hits, you don't crumble. Number 2, reduce the digital drip. You have to eliminate some of the little micro stresses in your day. On their own, these micro stresses, they'd be benign. You wouldn't even notice them. But one stacked on top of another all day long is a surefire way to deplete your nervous system and to elevate your stress. Can you batch your emails instead of nibbling on them throughout your day? Can you turn off non-essential notifications or bundle or batch your notifications? Because these trick your brain into thinking that they're urgent and important. Why? That red bubble is associated psychologically, red, with danger, urgency, and importance. Can you add a 10-minute buffer break between your virtual meetings? Because we know brain scans show that a 10-minute rest period between virtual meetings lowers your stress. We also know that our eyes aren't designed to spend hours a day looking at our screens. Remember, ancient brains and our eyes were designed to dilate, to watch the sunrise, to stare at the woolly mammoth on the horizon. So closing your eyes for 30 seconds will give 2 regions of your brain in particular a rest. One's called your occipital lobe and your fusiform gyrus, and these are very active parts of your brain when you are on virtual meetings. So closing your eyes just for 30 seconds gives those regions a much needed break. Now, the trick, do this on your virtual meetings. Just sit very still so that it looks like your internet has temporarily frozen or dropped out. The third way to develop your stress adaptability is to recover on purpose. Your body needs to know the threat and the stress is over. When a stressful email lands in your inbox or your kids are combusting on the way home, how can you respond and not react? A simple way, physiological sighs. A sigh is simply 2 inhalations through our nose, followed by a long exhalation through our mouth. Doing this 2 to 3 times is an instant, scientifically backed way to drop your stress. I monitor this on my Whoop strap with the stress monitor, and I get my clients to do the same. And they are often shocked to see that the most instant, profound impact on their stress is simply by sighing 2 to 3 times. Another simple thing we need to do to regulate our stress is to laugh, hum, cry, sing, hug someone. These are all biological releases that drop the stress valve. They help us release oxytocin, which is the antidote to cortisol. Even something as simple as going for a walk. You see, when we walk, we create optic flow and things move past our eyes. This act of things moving past our eyes quietens down our amygdala, which is often the worry center of our brain. This is why we often feel calmer after we've had a shower, we've gone for a drive, sat in a train or a tram or a bus on the way home. It is calming. And finally, connection, especially for women. Send a meme, have a chat, go for a walk and talk. Science shows us it literally drops cortisol, particularly for females. So here's your reframe in today's episode. Stress isn't the villain. Stress can be energy. Left unresolved, it will erode you. Harnessed wisely, it will sharpen you. The key isn't to eliminate stress, it's to learn to dance with it. To know when to lean in, when to lean out, and listen to when you just want to lay down. Next time, in the next episode, we're going to explore why women in particular need connection, why chats, memes, coffee dates aren't indulgences, they're biological buffers. Until then, notice your storm. Pop up your umbrella. And remember, you don't have to weather the stress superstorm alone. I'm Dr. Christy Goodwin, and thanks for listening to Spacious Success. If today's episode resonated, subscribe so you never miss an episode. And share this episode with a friend who might be caught in her own stress superstorm. Let her know that she's not alone, she's not exaggerating the impact that it's having on her, and that there are some simple science-backed ways to build her stress umbrella. Until next time, thanks for listening.